Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc. and today we got a top 15. This is top 15 Unsolved Mysteries with video footage. Now, rule I've now set is that if we reacted to the thing before via top 15, the 3-hour one was the exception because I knew all those were going to be repeated. But from now, if we have heard the story before, we're just going to skip it. That way, saves us time from having to hear the same one over and over again. Best thing. Anyways, hit the like button, subscribe button. Let's go.
Number 15, Emma Philipov. 26-year-old Emma Philipov was living in a women's shelter in Victoria, British Columbia, when she was reported missing by her mother. Emma always made sure to remain in contact with her mother and her friends, always contacting them so they knew she was safe. She somehow managed to hide the fact that she was in a shelter, so everyone assumed she was doing well. She had been in and out of the shelter many times between February and November of 2012. Emma talked to her mother a few days before she vanished. She told her mother that she wanted to be picked up. Her mother agreed, but as they were planning out their meeting point, Emma abruptly changed her mind. According to her mother's statement, her tone switched drastically and she seemed deeply upset. She finally confessed to her mother that she had been living in a shelter as well as on the streets. She said to her mom, "I don't know if I can face you." Upon hearing this horrible news, her mother made plans to travel to pick up her daughter as fast as she could. For the rest of that day, she didn't hear from Emma. On November 28th, before they planned to meet, the victim's mother contacted police to report her as missing. Once an investigation was started, officers found a report concerning Emma from around 6 p.m. on the day she went missing. She was seen outside of a nearby hotel. Employees called the police to report her as distressed. She was apparently pacing around the hotel both inside and out. She was crying about something, but couldn't speak clearly enough to express what was wrong. Officers arrived and talked to her for several minutes, during which time she calmed down. There was no reason for an arrest or charge, so the officers told Emma to leave the property and left it at that. During the later investigation,
That's annoying, but I can understand it. Right? Like, that's an annoying situation that they let her go and told her just leave the property and left it at that, because clearly she was in distress. But at the end of the day, there's nothing they could have done to her. At the end of the day, she's just an upset chick who's not belonging on the property. So they ask her to leave. Once she leaves, there's nothing else they can do.
Evidence of what Emma had done that day was found. Just a few hours after the incident at the hotel, CCTV footage showed the young woman buying a $200 prepaid debit card at a local 7-Eleven station store. Many viewers think that in the video, she appears scared and paranoid because she frequently glances out of the window toward the parking lot. She also hung around inside the store for several minutes before actually leaving. According to a taxi driver who saw requests for information about Emma, he picked her up from the station and was going to drive her to the shelter. Midway through the trip, she confessed that she didn't have enough money to cover the taxi charges. The driver stopped shortly after and let her out. Even after all these years, this is the only information available about Emma. Sadly, she is still missing. If you have any information, please contact 1-800-222-8477. Number 14, Brett Orme. 54-year-old Brett Orme from Brisbane, Australia, has only been missing for a few weeks, but the circumstances are mysterious, and his family is desperate to find him. On August 13th of this year, Brett called his son to check in with him. He told his son that he was taking a trip away from home, but didn't clarify where he was going or why. He assured his son that they would see each other soon, but this was the last time anyone from Brett's life heard from him. Surveillance footage from August 11th, 2023 shows Brett loading up his white Nissan Navara and driving away from his home. When no one heard from Brett for several days, his son reported him missing. An investigation found the security footage and released it to the public, and detectives encouraged viewers to study the appearance of the vehicle and keep an eye out for Brett. Witnesses who claimed to have seen the car near Deepwater Bend, a local wetland area with parks and hiking trails, came forward. Various accounts allowed officers to piece together a brief timeline. The car pulled up to a secluded area and remained there for about 3 hours. The driver, who witnesses could not confirm or deny was Brett, returned to the car and left for only a few short minutes before driving back around midnight and being abandoned. The The search efforts extended across several counties as investigators and family members sought answers. Brett's family, friends, and co-workers said that disappearing out of the blue was out of character for Brett, as he appeared to be living a happy and healthy life. As the investigation continued, a new piece of evidence was found on August 16th. Brett's damaged phone was found where it had been apparently thrown on the ground near a hiking trail by the Iron Bank Gully. The only evidence that seemed useful in the phone was a selfie that Brett took on August 13th, the day he talked to his son for the last time. While the exact location of the photo could not be determined, it was obviously taken in a forested area, most likely a hiking trail or near a river. The image showed that Brett was apparently happy, and he did not appear to be in any danger. This suggested to investigators that Brett was having a good time, making his disappearance even more strange. On August 19th, Brett's vehicle was finally located and could be searched. Again, it offered no new evidence in the case and seemed to be another dead end. Search parties carried on for days as the area of focus continuously expanded. Teams were sent into the wilderness in case Brett had gotten lost on a hike. Cadaver dogs were also brought in, but failed to find anything of importance. To this day, Brett has still not been found. As the case is fairly new, the search efforts and investigation has not yet been halted. If you have any information,
there's no video footage. You show me nothing video about. Why would you put this in a category of video footage if you have no video? Video footage would make me believe there's a video attached to what you're going to show me. There's no video of him. Oh, I guess the video is the car. Is that what the video was? Was the vehicle? Because they had a video of his vehicle, right? Yeah. Alright, my bad. Never mind. Ignore me.
You may contact Queensland Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-0000. Number 13. Stephen Kocher. Stephen Kocher was 30 years old when he vanished in Henderson, Nevada, a city in the Las Vegas Valley, on December 13, 2009. To this day, nearly 14 years later, there has still been no trace of him. Investigators had very little to work with when he was first reported missing. However, they did manage to find CCTV footage of his last known whereabouts. However, instead of shedding light on the situation, his last known movements make his story even more confusing. Stephen was originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. In April 2009, he quit his longtime job, packed his bags, and moved away in what seemed like a spur-of-the-moment decision. He made a new home in St. George, Utah, but was dealing with financial struggles. Those who knew him said he was struggling to find work. He managed to stay afloat for several months by living off of his savings and earning money through handiwork and side hustles, but this income only took him so far. By December of 2009, he was over $1,000 behind on his rent. Stephen once again decided to hit the road and find a place to start over, hoping for better odds this time. On December 12, 2009, Stephen made 2 phone calls to friends from his hometown. They later reported to investigators that Stephen had told them he was going to Las Vegas. As far as they knew, he had no connections in Nevada, and they expressed concern about these plans, especially since Stephen was already completely broke. For several days after this, his family tried to get in touch with him, but all efforts to make contact failed. Although he lived a risky lifestyle, he always made sure to stay in touch with his loved ones back home. His family reached out to police to report Stephen missing, and the investigation began. Stephen's car was found rather quickly, parked on the street in a wealthy neighborhood in Henderson, Nevada. His belongings were found in the car and seemed untouched, which suggested he planned on returning to the car. Another odd detail that spun the investigation in circles was that his trunk was filled to the brim with Christmas presents intended for his family. This detail made it difficult to imagine that Stephen had disappeared on his own accord.
Yeah, that would make me go, oh, he definitely didn't go on his own accord, because no one would pack Christmas presents if they planned to disappear. They definitely would not do that, because that just doesn't make any sense.
It was also difficult to imagine how he could afford so many presents when his loved ones knew about his financial struggles. Detectives wondered if Stephen's finances might be one aspect of the mystery. One theory put forth was that Stephen became involved with drug dealing or other illegal work that afforded him this windfall, but could have also put him at risk.
Not something I can say no to. That is a possibility. We do know there are people who are or willing to do whatever it takes to get money. So there are people who will go into drugs just to make ends meet when you have to.
Sometime after Stephen's car was found, security camera footage from the neighborhood was collected. The footage, which is very short, shows Stephen exiting his car and walking down the street before disappearing from sight. He never returned to his car, and no one else was identifiable in the footage. In December 2022, another resident of that same neighborhood came forward to admit that they had seen Stephen before he walked down the street. While they didn't see him exit the car, he apparently knocked on their door, but then immediately crossed the street and continued walking. When the resident answered their door and saw Stephen, he yelled out, "I need some money!" According to the unnamed resident, they just closed the door, assuming Stephen was a street person or addict, which was relatively common in the area. In the days following his disappearance, his cell phone pinged in several different cities a few miles away, but eventually either died or was shut off. Stephen still has not been found. There has been no new evidence in the case, and it is now considered cold now that more than a decade has gone by. However, if you happen to have any information on Stephen, you're encouraged to call Crime Stoppers at 702-385-5555 or at crimestoppersofnv.com/reportacrime. Information can also be sent via text by sending crimes and then your message to crimes 274637. Crime Stoppers offers a reward for information that leads to an arrest. Number 12, Mariano Medina Funes. Mariano Medina Funes.
This is a guy I've never heard of. This is probably one I've never actually heard of at all.
Was 26 years old when he mysteriously vanished on New Year's.
That and the one that happened this year, because obviously I'm not going to know that one. I'm not that in tune with disappearances.
New Year's Eve 2019 from his hometown of Jacinto City, Texas. Mariano spoke to his sister before he disappeared to let her know that he planned on picking up some fireworks to celebrate the new year with his family. Things apparently did not go according to plan, and Mariano was never seen again. According to his family, Mariano was a hardworking man with a huge heart. They often referred to him as a big teddy bear due to his kindness. He had no known enemies, and in fact, didn't have many friends he hung out with outside of his family. These details convinced his family and investigators that he would never willingly disappear from his life and loved ones. Although he did smoke pot, he wasn't much of a drinker, and, as far as anyone knew, never got involved with heavier substances. On the day of his disappearance, before going to buy the fireworks he mentioned, Mariano met up with two unidentified men to purchase pot. Security footage from his apartment complex showed a black car pulling up in the parking lot. A man in the passenger seat opened his door and exited the car to let Mariano into the back seat. Based on the timeline that was laid out during the initial investigation, another source of footage spotted the same car at a gas station about 30 minutes to an hour later. This time in the footage, Mariano switched seats with the passenger. Another person from the car was seen entering the store. That clip was eventually released to the public in the hopes that a witness would recognize the mystery man. Obviously, though, no one ever came forward to identify him. A while after leaving the store,
this could be a scenario of like a planned hit. Like you go with these people thinking you could trust them to go get pot, but instead they just took his life. Maybe he couldn't pay, price went up, and he couldn't pay it, so they just killed him. Can't be out of the realm of possibility. Great people here do drugs.
Mariano made a concerning call to his girlfriend. He told her that he was at someone's house, but didn't specify who or where. He seemed frantic and afraid. He began yelling, "They're going to kill me," several times before the call was disconnected. This was the last time Mariano was ever heard from. A search was conducted. An investigation was performed, yet the case seemed to have hit a dead end. Officials were unable to locate any additional evidence or identify the suspects to bring them closer to finding the beloved uncle, son, and brother. Although things seem frozen in time now, Lieutenant Dennis Walker states that he has not let the case go and is still working hard with his team to bring Mariano home. If you have any information on this case, please contact Jacinto City, Texas officials at 281-309-9500. Number 11. Shelby Thornberg. On November 4th, 2015, 20-year-old Shelby Thornberg was found murdered in her apartment in Houston, Texas. Shelby was a worker who had met up with a client shortly before she was found dead by her boyfriend Marcus. Even before she was found dead, Shelby's life had been full of pain. She and her sister...
I don't want to sound like a dick, but why would any man let his woman be a sex worker? This is an actual question. A man would have to answer this, not a, right? Like, but like, why would you? Maybe I'm just too stupid and can't figure it out, because I can't picture in my head why would you let your woman be a sex worker and sleep with other men, but maybe it's a thing, I don't know.
Kirstina Scott grew up in foster care, where they were routinely physically and... These traumatic experiences left both women dealing with PTSD and mental struggles. Shelby, for example, was obese for most of her life and suffered from body image issues and insecurity. Finally, in the few years before she lost her life, she decided to make a change. She dedicated time to dieting and exercising and taking care of herself and her appearance. She lost around 180 pounds and made plans for plastic...
I ain't a fan of plastic surgery part, but losing 180 pounds, that is something worth giving credit to. That is not easy to do.
Surgery procedures with a new goal of becoming a model. Shelby failed to find a stable job and couldn't afford the work she wanted done, and so she began to engage in sex work. She went to great lengths to hide the true nature of the job from her sister. She insisted to her that she didn't have sex with any of her clients. She said that she only went out on dates with rich men in the city. In April 2014, Shelby was arrested for prostitution and had to serve 33 days in jail.
The woman even got arrested. The disappearing woman at one point got arrested for prostitution and still kept doing. I'm gonna hope and assume her boyfriend didn't know, because I just can't figure out how that would even happen.
In an attempt to keep the truth hidden, she told her sister that she wasn't working the streets and just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. This lie was eventually exposed when she...
I would assume so, because I've been like, that's a lie. I wouldn't believe that for a second.
She was arrested once again on the same charge in June 2015. Despite these setbacks, she continued her work. Her longtime boyfriend, Marcus Dwayne Johnson, was also her pimp. He helped find...
There it is! There's the reason a boyfriend would allow his girlfriend to be a sex, because he's a pimp. Of course that's the reason. Oh my god. Also, I find hilarious his name was Dwayne Johnson. Like, his middle name is Dwayne. That's amazing. That is actually amazing.
In Shelby work and was supposed to protect her while she was with clients. On the day that Shelby was killed, however, he wasn't able to show up quickly enough to save her from her fate. Shelby had a date set up for the night, an in-call, where the man was going to come to her apartment. Around 8:33 p.m., she received a text from the unidentified client saying, "I'm here." Surveillance footage from the Conquistador Apartments in Houston, Texas, showed the client walking into the lobby and heading toward the unit. Shelby and...
This camera is absolute terrible cameraing. This hotel or apartment or whatever it is should be ashamed of themselves for this type of camera work. This is terrible, terrible security cameras. You ain't gonna get a feature from a fucking soul here. What? This is terrible. Absolute terrible footage. What's wrong with y'all?
Showed the client walking into the lobby and heading toward the unit. Shelby and Marcus had a code word, GUD, that meant that the date went well, she was safe, and she got her money. This text was sent around 8:40 p.m., and a short time later, around 8:57, more footage from the lobby showed the date calmly walking out. Some time went by, and without additional word from his partner. Marcus grew worried and went to her apartment. There he found her kneeling on the ground with her head lying across the bed. There was blood pooled on the floor and smeared on the walls and bed. Shelby was clearly dead. An autopsy later showed that her neck had been cut with a large knife. The cut was so deep that it hit her spinal cord. Investigators determined that whoever had killed Shelby must have had some anatomical knowledge to make such a specific and brutal cut. After finding Shelby, Marcus made a hysterical 911 call, saying to the operator, "Someone's dead. They killed my girl." For reasons unknown, Houston police did not contact the homicide investigative team before arriving. Off the clock, officers in street clothing entered the apartment.
What? Why would you not call the homicide division? Why would you not, why would you send off-duty cops in street clothes? There was so much wrong with that.
To confirm that Shelby could not be saved. They then finally proceeded to call in the homicide team. Between the time the call was made and the time the new crew showed up, the crime scene had virtually turned into a museum showcase. A small crowd had formed, including officers who had not been dispatched to the scene and employees of the complex. Because of all the foot traffic and the fact that the scene had not been properly blocked off, valuable evidence had been destroyed.
This is what we call stupidity at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. There is stupidity after stupidity of human beings. This is why you don't send off-duty cops, because they don't have the stuff there to stop the crime scene. What you're supposed to do is you're supposed to close the door. Oh, you're supposed to close the door to the place and say no one fucking enter. And if y'all enter, you'll be arrested. That's what you don't care if you work there, who you are, you're an officer. You don't go in there until the homicide division goes in. That's what you do. You don't just allow everyone to walk in because you're fucking stupid.
Investigators struggled to identify evidence at the scene, making it difficult to pinpoint a suspect. The only evidence that was found was a single hair on...
This man could be have been the lousiest criminal. There could have been evidence all over this place. But somehow, the stupidity of police officers may have made this guy who was a dumbass as a criminal somehow become intelligent, because he somehow just got away with murder. He might not even have done anything to cover up any evidence. It just so happened that he had to deal with dumb officers who made it so everyone ruined his own evidence.
On the victim's body, which was never matched in the system. The text messages and security footage were the only real pieces of evidence detectives had to go on. The phone used by the client to contact Shelby was a burner which had been activated earlier that same day and was deactivated shortly after the murder. Even with footage of the killer entering and leaving the apartment.
No, because it's a shitty camera. I ain't gonna get nothing off of that.
Investigators have yet to identify him.
Because
if you recognize this suspect, or if you have any information on the case, you are encouraged to call 334-542-3459. Number 10, Kiara Kohls. The case of missing Kiara Kohls, according to one of the head investigators on her case, is in limbo. According to Lieutenant William Sveiler, her case is both cold and open simultaneously. This means that while there has been a dearth of useful evidence found, investigators are still actively searching for leads in the case in the hopes of bringing the young woman home. Kiara was a 26-year-old postal worker in Chicago when she went missing on October 2, 2018. At the time of her disappearance, she was 3 months pregnant. Thanks to a variety of footage caught on security cameras, investigators were able to cobble together a timeline of events. Earlier on the day of Kiara's disappearance, her mom, Karen Phillips, spoke with her daughter on the phone while she was out shopping for baby clothes. She reported that she didn't think there was anything unusual about the call. Sadly, that was the last time Karen spoke to her daughter. Later that day, cameras captured Kiara returning home and unpacking her shopping haul. A few hours passed by before a mysterious man, someone police consider to be a person of interest, was seen entering the residence. A short time.
Hold on, is this supposed to be her? Because this does not look like why does she look? Why is with this photo? Is this a thing? Why does she look so older here? Because here, I'm sorry, man. I'm just saying. I have to say what's on my mind. Here, she looks like in her 20s. Here, she looks like she's in her 40s. Like what the hell? 30s, 40s. Weird.
Off in Kiara's car. Around 10:43 p.m., footage from a nearby ATM captured Kiara making 2 withdrawals, totaling about $400. The pair then drove off again. Within another 30 minutes, Kiara's car was seen parking in an empty lot on the other side of town from the initial ATM footage. This time, the man exited the passenger seat. No one exited from the driver's seat. Most theories suggest that the man slid across the front seat and then repositioned the driver's side seat to make it seem like a smaller person was driving. Footage collected from the following day shows the unknown man driving up to Kiara's residence in her car. He parks it nearby, enters the building, and leaves a short time later carrying a bundle of unidentified items. He then drives off in his own vehicle, which had been parked there overnight. That evening, after not hearing from her daughter in about 24 hours, Karen reported Kiara missing. As the search began, Karen went to her daughter's home to meet with investigators and join in on the work. While she was there, Kiara's boyfriend and the possible father of her child, Josh Simmons, was there to help. He told everyone that he hadn't seen Kiara in many days. Police reviewed the CCTV footage of Kiara and the mysterious man and could not identify a person of interest, so turned to the public for assistance. However, in an interview, Karen shared that she recognized the suspect as Josh Simmons. Police called him in for questioning. According to Lieutenant William Sviler, Simmons gave a series of excuses and accounts which seemed to change each time.
How is he not your prime suspect? He must be, right? The father of the child, who apparently the mom can identify as the person, the mystery man. When you interview him, he has a bunch of excuses and can't give you a straight answer. That seems pretty easy to identify. Say he's probably not suspect number uno.
There wasn't enough evidence to hold or charge him, but most believe he is responsible for Kiara's disappearance.
I say
Josh ended up moving out of state, and there is still not enough evidence in the case to charge him or any other suspect. To this day, Kiara Kohls' whereabouts are unknown. Anyone with information about the disappearance of Kohls is asked to contact Chicago police at 833-408-0069 or 312-746-7330 or online at cpdtip.com. Number 9. Delano Burks. On November 12, 2022, 26-year-old Delano Burks met up with a group of friends for a night out on the town in Houston, Texas. The group visited a few spots and had more than a few drinks. The friends were cruising from party to party in Delano's car. All was well until just before 1 a.m. when Delano was last seen by his friends. According to their story, they stopped at McIntyre's bar so Delano could use the restroom. He entered the establishment while the others waited in the car. It's unclear how much time passed, but eventually, the group decided that Delano wasn't coming back out, so they continued on their way in his car. Apparently, they assumed he wanted to stay there and would get an Uber home. Sadly, that's not what happened at all. A short while after he arrived, the bartender working that night reported that Delano was asked to leave because he was too drunk and needed to be cut off. A series of security cameras in the vicinity recorded the moments after Delano left the bar. He can be seen clearly stumbling around, nearly falling several times. As he stumbled through the streets, there were times he picked up his pace and began glancing around as though he thought he was being followed, although no one was there. After the victim's family reviewed the footage, they believed that he was in distress and likely afraid, but it is not clear what might have frightened him. His family also believed that he may have been drugged. It was later reported that after the CCTV footage was captured, his phone died. Investigators suspect it may have been possible he had already lost his ID and wallet. None of Delano's personal items were ever located. When he didn't arrive home the following day, Delano's family and friends began to worry. It was very unlike him to just disappear without calling anyone. His wife and family tried to contact him, but to no avail. His friends, who expected him to come pick up his car, also could not contact him. Eventually, it became obvious that something was very wrong, and the police were called. An investigation was opened, and a search party was assembled to travel through the Houston bars the group had patronized that night, trying to retrace Delano's steps and obtain any witness statements. Every step led to a dead end until 2 weeks later. Delano Burks' remains were found floating in the Houston Ship Channel, about 15 miles away from where he was last seen. While this walk is possible, it would have taken energy and stamina, which most believe a drunk man who was having as much trouble walking as Delano appeared to that night would not have. It is also possible, according to investigators, that he could have fallen into the bayou near the bar and been swept by waves to the ship channel, but of course, the exact point where he would have fallen in is unknown. There is another theory that perhaps he caught a ride from someone and things went south. An autopsy failed to confirm a specific cause of death, but it was originally deemed an accident. Delano's family, desperate for answers, requested a second autopsy. They wanted to test their theory that their loved one had drugs in his system or was assaulted or attacked. The exam found that he had many bruises, but none of them would have been fatal. As for drugs, the family was told that something was found in his blood. This left his family yearning.
What the heck type of answer is that? Hey, how many drugs? He had something. Well, what is it? He had something. Like, I don't know why. Like, why you just say... I think you can tell them what drugs he had. I don't think that would have...
For more answers. His official cause of death is still unknown, and his case remains open. If you have any information on what may have happened to Delano Burks, you are encouraged to contact his sister via email at kj_interest@yahoo.com.
Yahoo.com! God damn, when the hell's the last time I heard someone use that?
8. Melina Kokari. The case of missing 11-year-old Melina Kokari is a trap.
I would have fortunately messed that name up so much. I'd call it like Go-Ko Party or something like that. It'd be very bad. Yeah, I meant that.
Tragic one that still remains unsolved. Melina went missing from her home in Cornelius, North Carolina on November 23, 2022. This case lacks significant evidence, and many of the details surrounding her disappearance are unclear, unconfirmed, or rumors that were later proven false. On the morning of November 21st, security camera footage from Melina's school bus captured a glimpse of her at the end of the day. She had reported to school that morning as usual. While leaving the bus with other students, nothing seemed out of place concerning Melina.
Nope.
This would be the last time she was seen in public, and possibly the actual day she went missing. It's hard to piece together a timeline on the case because her parents failed to report her missing right away. Melina never returned to school the following day. Weeks went by without her presence, and the employees at Bailey Middle School made countless attempts to contact Deanna, Melina's mother. Their calls went unanswered, and there seemed to be no urgency on the mother's end in regard to the whereabouts of her daughter.
Found my suspects! Already found the fucking suspects! I found my suspects! I don't... But then again, I mean, she's involved, right? The family's involved somehow, because if your child went missing, you wouldn't just not do anything for weeks on end, okay? That's just not how it works. So they know what happened to her. It's just, did they kill her and take her? Did they take her and kill her? Or did they just have someone take her? Because we saw, there was a case. I don't remember how recent it was, but there was a case where a mother had her, I think it was an uncle, or like something like that, kidnap a girl, or kidnap a child, so that they could have a missing person case, and they could then have the uncle say he found the child and collect the reward. That was the plan, but then police weren't that stupid, so they caught on to the sketchiness of that immediately, and then both the mother and the uncle now in charge. I think I have that right.
Finally, on December 15th, Diana visited the school and told the office that her daughter had been missing. She offered few further details about the case. Diana said that her daughter left their house on November 23rd to play with a neighbor and never returned. After this interaction...
What, you just not care that badly? You were just that your parents, you just didn't even care about the fact that your child went missing? You just thought nothing of it, I guess? Fucking hell.
School employees learned that despite telling them about Madalena's disappearance, Diana had failed to contact the police. So, the school stepped in and reported the young girl missing.
That is insane. If I'm the police, if the police don't think they're a suspect, the police are still... That'd be a first step, like, hold on, wait. So the school reported her missing, but the parents never did? They're like, yeah, I'm like, look into the parents, there's something up there.
A search party was formed and went to work. Just a few days after finally making the report, Madalena's mother and her 60-year-old stepfather, Christopher Palmer, were arrested on charges of failing to report a disappearance. Eventually, the search for the young girl expanded from her hometown to the entire county. Searchers focused specifically on forested regions and secluded properties, in case Madalena wandered off and got lost or was dumped by a perpetrator in the wilderness. After the fact, witnesses in the area shared that they had seen Diana and her car around the local forested areas for several days in a row around the time of Madalena's disappearance. Still, this lead didn't beget any new evidence, and they still failed to find any trace of the girl. While Diana and Christopher are set to face trial this year, a wild interview with Madalena's grandmother twisted things in a shocking way. She came forward after the arrests and claimed that Christopher had sold Madalena into human trafficking. She said he had been drugging Madalena and Diana for several months. Oddly enough...
What? No way! There's no way! You're telling me that the grandmother said... Nah, the stepfather's been, sold her for human trafficking. They've been drugging her and the mother up for months. No way!
When Diana was initially apprehended, they found her in possession of fentanyl. While she claimed she found it in the shower, it did lend credence to the grandmother's theory. She believed that Christopher drugged Madalena and sold her for $5 million. Although she was certain this was the case, there just wasn't enough evidence to support it or any other theory. This case is still open and active, and the footage has been released to aid in witnesses recognizing the victim. Her remaining family still holds on to hope that the beloved child will be found safe. If you have any information on Madalena's whereabouts, or this case in general, please call the Cornelius Police Department at 704-892-7773. Number 7. Alicia Apostoloff-Boyarin. This clip may seem like mundane footage of a couple casually shopping in a supermarket. However, it is actually the last known footage of a woman who went missing just a few days later. Alicia Apostoloff-Boyarin vanished from her town Ashton-under-Lyne, Tameside, Greater Manchester, in the United Kingdom in January 2022. These images were taken on January 14th, and they match up with the last time Alicia's debit card was used. Later that same day, evidence showed that Alicia and her unidentified partner traveled to Sunderland Bridge in Croxdale in Durham. From that day to the next time they were spotted, their whereabouts and activities remain unknown. Evidence from January 22nd proved that the couple went from Durham to Glossop in Derbyshire. Again, their reasons for such travel are unknown. After so many days, Alicia was finally reported missing by her family, who had not heard from her. The investigation found that she was still traveling with the unidentified man, who has been named a person of interest, in a Volkswagen Passat. This vehicle could have been a great way to track the travels of this couple. As luck would have it, though, the car was later found abandoned along the side of a highway near the couple's last known location. It was thoroughly investigated, but yielded no concrete evidence. Alicia's family stated that she would never run from her life willingly and that they had no idea she was involved with a man at all. From what little details were made available in the security camera footage, her family failed to identify her partner. If you have any information on this case, please contact Crime Stoppers anonymously at 0800-555-111. Number 6. Lena Sadar kill. On December 20th, 2021, Zarmina Sadar Kill took her 2 children to their neighborhood park in a suburban area of San Antonio for a day of fun. They were at the park for a while as Zarmina watched her children run around with other kids, having an absolute blast. Zarmina walked away from the playground for just a few moments for reasons that remain unclear, and that's when things took a horrible turn. When she returned, she found her son playing as expected, but couldn't seem to spot her daughter, 4-year-old Lena Sadar Kiel. The mother searched the play area and picnic tables nearby in a panic. She quickly realized that something wasn't right. She began asking other parents at the park if they had seen the child. Some of the adults and children said that they had seen her there, but didn't notice her walking away or being picked up or approached by anyone. Witnesses offered to help in the search, but could not locate the girl or any signs of anything unusual. Finally, Zarmina decided enough was enough, and she contacted police. Officers arrived and combed through the neighborhood. Residents in the area were interviewed, but no one had not seen the girl or any suspicious activity that might be related to her disappearance. Unable to find the child, officers called in higher-up investigators who immediately enacted a public search and widespread investigation. The day turned to night, and there was still no sign of little Lena. The following day, footage from a neighbor's security camera was released to the public. The video showed Lena and her brother playing in the park. However, Lena eventually strays from the area and walks toward the street. She walked out of frame, and the most important piece of evidence thus far became another dead end for investigators and the worried family of the little girl. The search went on.
It's interesting how quickly that can happen, right? Like how quickly someone can just be, a child could be playing there, you go up, you walk away from the park for a second, maybe you take a phone call or something, you come back, gone. Just like that, no one sees a thing, no one knows a thing, and everything she's just gone. Like, snap a finger that quickly.
Went on for many months, and the area was combed from the forest to the nearby river. There was no sign of Lena anywhere. A little over a year after she vanished, the community held a vigil for Lena's 5th birthday. During this ceremony, investigators officially released an age progression sketch of the victim. In April 2023, Reyes Sadar Kiel, Lena's father, agreed to a polygraph test. He was not considered a suspect, but with the case having no leads or evidence, detectives wanted to take steps to confirm that neither of the girl's parents were involved with her disappearance. Her mother wasn't asked for a test, but agreed she would willingly take one if needed. The results from those tests have not been publicized, but considering Reyes is not in custody, he is likely not a suspect. Lena's case was featured.
Well, technically, in this case, they even if he was a suspect, they don't have evidence on. They have no evidence on anybody, on anything. They don't even know where to start with this. So, just because he's not in custody doesn't mean he's not a suspect.
Featured on a V program called On Patrol Live, thanks to the help of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. During the episode, they shared details of the case, as well as the last known CCTV footage of Lena. As of now, there have been no updates in the case. However, the Islamic Center of San Antonio has released a promised reward of $200,000 to anyone who can help solve the case. Additionally, Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of $50,000. If you have any information about Lena Sadar Kiel or her disappearance, please contact the San Antonio Police Department at 1-210-207-7273 or NECMEC at 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. Number 5. Prisma Denise Peralta Reyes. On April 17, 2019, a 26-year-old single mother named Prisma Denise Peralta Reyes was reported missing by loved ones from her hometown of Mesquite, Texas. More than 4 years later, the young woman is still missing. While her case is considered open and ongoing, investigators have shared that there have been no new leads or evidence in the case to move them any closer to identifying her whereabouts or what may have happened to her. Investigators have been able to construct a timeline of Prisma's last known actions thanks to witness statements and CCTV footage from 2 locations the mother visited on the day she was last seen. On the morning of April 17th, a Wednesday, Prisma dropped off her then 6-year-old son at his babysitter's house early in the morning before heading to work. During the ensuing investigation, a co-worker of hers told officers that after Prisma arrived at work that morning, she got into a small argument with another employee about a parking spot. While this likely had nothing to do with her disappearance, it set the tone for the rest of her day because she appeared to be in a bad mood as she began work. After the dust settled, Prisma continued her day as normal until around noon. She took her lunch break as usual, a break which was supposed to only be about an hour long. However, that was the last time she was seen at work. Through security footage, it was later discovered that Prisma went to a restaurant called E-Bar Tex-Mex with a man later identified as her ex-boyfriend, Ryan. The pair talked, ate, and had a few drinks together for about an hour before apparently getting into what staff described as an altercation. This caused Ryan to abruptly leave the bar. Prisma, however, stayed behind and was seen on CCTV footage drinking for 3 more hours. Eventually, the bartender had to cut her off and ask her to leave. Prisma was clearly intoxicated when she left the bar. Shortly after leaving, police were contacted about a woman involved in a road rage incident during which she pulled a gun on another driver. Police...
Damn! Damn, woman! You were just drunk and now you're on road rage incidents where you're pointing guns at people? Like, you need to calm down there. Calm down, woman!
that were called to the scene met with a dead end because the woman had taken off. Obviously, they later came to realize that the woman was Prisma. She was apparently driving back to work when the interaction happened, but before she got there, she received a phone call and turned her car around to travel in the opposite direction. She drove to an apartment complex called the Olympus at Ross, where Ryan lived. She parked her 2017 Jeep Wrangler in the street nearby before entering the parking garage, where she was seen on CCTV footage. Her body language suggested that she was still intoxicated.
Oh, she drunk. Oh, she's drunk. She had trouble keeping her balance, for God's sakes.
And very angry. She was on the phone, and it was obvious from the footage that she was crying and shouting. She had called a family friend, apparently on accident. The friend, Chris, told officers that it was difficult to understand most of what she was saying, but that she called him Ryan multiple times and kept asking for his apartment number. Eventually, she hung up and entered the elevator with a resident of the apartments. This person said that during the elevator ride, she was crying heavily and continuously repeated that she needed help. However, when the resident tried to locate her once more and get more information from her, she was nowhere to be found. Hours passed, and the security cameras never captured any footage of Prisma leaving the property. However, investigators confirmed that the complex didn't have full CCTV coverage, and there were a number of ways she could have left the premises without being seen by the cameras, meaning it is not clear if, when, or how she left the complex. Prisma usually picked up her son from the babysitter at 7:30 each day, and it was unusual for her to be late. The babysitter reported that she knew Prisma to be a responsible mother who would call ahead if she was running even a few minutes behind. In fact, the sitter shared that earlier that day, Prisma had called her, and the pair spoke for about an hour, a conversation which seemed ordinary and friendly. The babysitter called Prisma several times when she failed to pick up her child, and by the time 9:30 rolled around, she knew something terrible was happening. The babysitter reached out to Prisma's family, who also had not heard from her. Her family members began to try to contact her as well, even stopping by her home, but to no avail. Prisma was reported missing to the police that night. A search was organized, and the investigation was opened. Her Jeep was eventually located where she left it at Ryan's apartment complex. Inside was her handgun, which her family said she had purchased about 6 months prior. saying that she felt she was being stalked. Her family said that Prisma claimed someone had been following her, and that on one occasion, her tires were slashed as her car sat in her driveway. Very little information concerning those claims could be confirmed, but investigators worried that it may have been a major point in her vanishing. Prisma's co-workers, her ex-boyfriend Ryan, the resident who saw her at the apartment complex, and even the driver from the road rage interaction were all thoroughly investigated and were eventually dismissed as potential suspects. Prisma Denise Peralta Reyes would now be 30 years old and is still considered a missing person. She is 5 foot 2 inches, 135 pounds, Hispanic, and has long brown hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about her disappearance is asked to contact Mesquite Police at 972-285-6336. Number 4, Jennifer Kessie. 17 years after vanishing, the case of Jennifer Kessie is still considered open and ongoing. Jennifer was 24 years old when she disappeared in January 2006. She was working a decent office job, had a healthy relationship with her boyfriend, and had just returned from a fun vacation. The last time anyone heard from Jennifer was on January 23, 2006. She spent her day at work as usual and then went home at the end of the day. Family members and friends recount several phone calls between them and Jennifer on the day of her disappearance, wherein she was simply updating them on how her trip went and sharing her day. She even called her boyfriend later that night, as she often did, to have a similar conversation and make plans for the following day. That final phone call was placed around 10 p.m. It's unclear what happened that night, as the timeline in this case is murky. The next morning, Jennifer didn't show up for work. It was unlike her to do a no-call, no-show. Her employers and co-workers spent the day trying to contact her. They called her family before the workday was over to report her absence in hopes that she was okay and perhaps missed work for a family emergency or medical reason that she hadn't been able to communicate. When her family also failed to make contact with the young victim, they set out on a trip to find her. The drive from her parents' home to Jennifer's condo in Orlando, Florida, took about 2 hours. Once they arrived, they inspected her apartment and found evidence that suggested she had been there that morning and went through her usual routine, getting ready for work. Officers were called to the scene. However, according to her parents, they didn't do their part to take the case seriously. Since there was no evidence in her apartment of a home invasion or altercation, the single officer who showed up brushed the family by saying Jennifer likely had a fight with her boyfriend and would show up eventually. Of course, this was no help to her worried family.
No, that's just what we call lazy police work right there. That is lazy police work, ladies and gentlemen. That is what you do not do when a person's reporting missing. You don't go over, do the quickest look you can find, go, she probably had a fight and she's fine. And then that's it. And then say we're not working on it, do it for yourself. Like, it's not what you do. That's not how you deal with this. Officers.
And they took things into their own hands by organizing a search in the area, creating flyers to post up throughout the neighborhood. 2 days later, investigators finally got more seriously involved after realizing Jennifer wasn't going to return anytime soon. The first order of business for them was to collect any and all security footage from the condo property. Unfortunately, all they could find was a video of a man parking Jennifer's car in the condo lot before walking away. However, improbably, this footage also led to a dead end.
Because it's a shitty camera. Why is that? Apartments, people, you need to get better cameras. I know this 2006, so maybe this one's a bit more justified than the other one that had shitty cameras. Because that was like 2019 and there were better cameras then. This might be a bit justified, but like, goddamn, you ain't gonna get nothing out of this.
The camera system used by the condos wasn't equipped to record video. Instead, it took images every few seconds when triggered by motion. As luck would have it, the suspect could barely be seen in the available shots because, as if it were perfectly timed, the suspect's face was covered by the fence in every picture. Police were only able to determine that the person of interest was around 5 foot 3 inches in height. Nothing else could be identified. The victim's family and the investigators who worked the case took the clips of the man as evidence that foul play was afoot. Officers searched Jennifer's vehicle, but no evidence was found inside. They did find a few valuables left behind, indicating the suspect was not motivated by robbery. These puzzle pieces only made the case more confusing the longer it went on. Jennifer Kessie still has not been found, but her family refuses to give up hope. Investigators have stated that the case is still open, and they have received countless leads over the years and have simply not found any of value. If you have any information, you may contact Orlando, Florida Crime Line at 800-423-8477. Number 3. Deban Escobar. On April 22, 2022, the body of a young woman was found inside the water tank of a motel in General Escobedo, Mexico. This was the tragic conclusion to
if he would have just said that, it would have been like, hey, at least a body was found in the water tank of a hotel. I'm like, that's Alicia Lamb. Get the wrong case. That's Alicia Lamb that literally had that exact thing happen to her. But then, oh, it's in Mexico. Okay, so someone's just copying her.
To the 13-day search for the young law student Deban Escobar. On April 8th, Escobar went out drinking with a group of friends at the Quinta Diamante estate in General Escobedo. As was later reported by her friends, Deban had a little too much to drink at the party and began behaving strangely. She was apparently aggressive, confrontational, and her behavior was generally erratic. It was also said that she got into an argument with the group she had attended the party with and locked herself in the men's bathroom for an extended period of time. Later that night, around 1 a.m., Deban's friends decided it was time for her to go. The group, who had arrived at the party via a rideshare, requested a driver to take Deban back home in her intoxicated state. Unfortunately, she never got there. Security footage from a short time later captured what seemed to be an argument between Deban and the driver. The pair appeared to be yelling at one another before Deban got out of the car and started walking. After trying to convince the young woman to get back into the car, the driver gave up and took a photograph of her, which he sent to her friends. He explained to them,
why does it look like in this photo that she has no upper body? Why does it look like she has a head, no upper body, but then has this? Why does this look so weird of a photo? This is a weird photo. I don't like this photo at all. Look at this thing. This is a weird looking photo. Is this a real photo? Look at this thing.
What had happened during the ride and sent the photo to prove that she got out of her own accord and to absolve himself of any responsibility for what might happen to Escobar next, knowing the risks to a young woman alone at night. When questioned by police, he reported that the argument began because he was trying to get Deban's home address, but she refused to share the information and reacted aggressively. Some that viewed the footage believe it appears as though Deban groped the driver. Others argue that he groped her. Neither theory could be confirmed or denied due to the low quality of the video. After Deban left the car, the driver remained stationary for several minutes, watching her before he finally drove off. More footage from around 4:30 a.m. showed Escobar trying to get help from the Alcosa transportation offices, but there was no one around for her to speak with. Deban then headed in the direction of the Nueva Castilla motel. When the investigation originally began, the motel reported that their cameras only ran in real time, meaning footage could not be saved. 13 days after she vanished, Deban's body was found inside the water cistern at the motel. It was later revealed that the motel did, in fact, have recorded footage of Deban from that night. The videos from various cameras.
That's suspicious. Why on earth would you say you have no footage if you do? It's not like your footage shows anything. If your footage doesn't show anything that would make you look suspicious, why on earth would you not just show it?
Cameras showed her walking into the motel, as well as walking on the roof of the building toward the water tanks. How she reached the roof or got into the cistern remains a perplexing piece of the puzzle. The original autopsy reported that the victim climbed into the tank on her own and drowned. Her father insisted that simply couldn't be true and requested a second opinion, independently hiring a medical examiner for another autopsy. This second autopsy showed that Deban's cause of death was a deep cranial contusion. Evidence of physical and coital abuse was also found. Sadly, the case ran cold there. No new evidence or possible leads have been uncovered since Deban's body was found. Anyone with information relating to this crime is encouraged to call General Escobedo, Nuevo Leon Police. Number 2. The disappearance of Luke Durbin. Luke Durbin was your typical teenager from Hollisley.
Luke Durbin is one hell of a name. A hell of a choice of a name.
Suffolk, in the United Kingdom. Growing up amidst the countryside's calm, the buzz of the nearby town, Ipswich, often lured him in. Like countless other teens, the bright lights and nightlife there were too tempting to resist. On Thursday, May 11, 2006, the 19-year-old had just finished work for the day and was making his way over to his friend Alex's home. Here, he left behind not just his motorbike, but also a backpack containing some of his personal belongings, which notably included his mobile phone. The evening saw Luke, Alex, and another friend named Zach immersing themselves in Ipswich's nightlife. As the night progressed, Alex decided to call it early, leaving Luke and Zach. However, Zach too lost touch with Luke after a trip to the bar at the Zest nightclub. Between 2:30 a.m. and 3 a.m. on May 12th, Luke appeared on CCTV at the Ipswich railway station. His journey then led him across the town to the Hawk Express taxi rank, but he didn't have money on him for a fare, and even when offered a mobile phone, Luke declined to call home. The last confirmed sighting of Luke was captured on CCTV around 4 a.m. The footage showed him crossing the road in Dog's Head Street, seemingly in the direction of the bus station. As the sun rose the next morning, Luke was nowhere to be found. His family, initially hoping he might have crashed at a mate's place or just lost track of time, soon felt the cold grip of worry when they did not hear from the young man, when he didn't answer calls or texts, and when his personal items, including his cell phone, were discovered back at his friend Alex's place. Alarm bells started ringing. Luke's family reported him missing. The police swung into action, but Ipswich, with its myriad lanes, pubs, clubs, and nooks, wasn't making it easy. The initial phase of the investigation focused on retracing Luke's steps from that night. CCTV footage placed him at various spots throughout the night, and the last known footage of Luke was of him crossing a road in Dog's Head Street, heading towards the bus station. But after that, nothing. He simply vanished. Word spread quickly in the tight-knit community of Ipswich. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers joined the search, handing out flyers, holding public appeals, and scouring every possible place Luke might have gone. But despite these collective efforts, no solid leads emerged. While these are the confirmed events of the case, the mystery deepens when we weave in rumors and anecdotal information that have swirled around Ipswich regarding the disappearance of the young man. Suffolk, with its close-knit community, is no stranger to the grapevine, and often, hidden within the chatter and speculation, there are threads of truth. One such whisper suggests that Luke dabbled in small-time drug dealing, possibly involving substances like weed, pills, or cocaine. This rumor takes a darker turn, with the speculation that Luke had unsettled debts with drug dealers from Brixton. On the night Luke was in Ipswich, it's surmised that someone who knew these Brixton individuals spotted him. They then purportedly tracked Luke's movements until the dealers from Brixton arrived, taking advantage of the late hours' reduced traffic. Given Luke's state by the end of the night, it's believed he could have been easily coerced or forced into an unidentified vehicle. Notably, a silver or white Volvo was seen near the location of Luke's last sighting. Anchoring these speculations are the lived experiences of those who called Ipswich home during that era. Ipswich's intimate nature, where everyone seemingly knew everyone, made it fertile ground for small-time drug deals. The town's proximity to London also meant a looming presence of London's criminal underbelly, with ties purportedly extending to infamous gangs like the Essex Boys. Clubs like Zest were not just hubs of entertainment, but also hosts of violent incidents reportedly linked to conflicts spilling over from the London streets. A significant observation lies in the team of security staff operating in Ipswich during this period. Connected through the local council, these personnel maintained communication with each other, alerting their peers about potential troublemakers or those missing throughout the city. However, the underbelly of this setup was more sinister. Many security staff members were allegedly involved in drug-related activities themselves, either consuming, selling, or both. Connections to London's drug world, an environment fueled by a potent mix of drugs, steroids, and the relentless pressure to maintain a reputation, could lead to violent outcomes over seemingly minor issues. Luke's case, even after all these years, remains open, teeming with numerous narratives, each as compelling as the next. The quest for truth continues, and investigators hope to one day provide clarity and closure to a community and family that have been left only with doubt and mystery. Anyone who has information regarding Luke's disappearance is asked to submit this via the major investigation team's online portal or by calling 01473613513. Number 1. Natalie Jenkins. Natalie Jenkins struggled with drug addiction for much of her life. The UK woman also faced mental illness issues that only made her connection to reality even weaker. Her family stated that before she went missing, she was working as an escort and dealer in the streets of Middlesbrough. Despite her rocky lifestyle, she managed to remain in regular contact with her loved ones. No matter what hardships or demons she was facing, she made it a point to check in with her family frequently. So, when Natalie went silent for several days in December 2019, her family promptly reported the 32-year-old as missing. Although a search and investigation were quickly enacted, everyone knew that finding Natalie was going to be no easy task. It was often hard enough to track her down when she was using substances or having a mental health episode, but the possibility that she was kidnapped or even murdered made the investigation even more complicated. Although they knew the issues they would face, the team persisted. Kessie had been living in a house with other people in similar situations. Although it wasn't confirmed, investigators believed that the house was being used to sell drugs and host escort services. Her roommates said that they hadn't seen or heard from her in several days either, but that with their way of life this wasn't completely uncommon. Still, they shared that they were also worried because there had been a few instances where Natalie was robbed by her clients or faced abuse. No one could share information in identifying any of those clients. There was a brief break in the case when CCTV footage from a home in Middlesbrough recorded Natalie walking down the street in the evening around 7 p.m. This footage was important in identifying Natalie's last known whereabouts. It also helped investigators publish details of exactly what she was wearing the night she went missing. The video was apparently taken just minutes before Natalie wandered off forever. Sadly, this was the last important piece of evidence that the investigation could find. Natalie is still missing. Anyone with information relating to this disappearance is encouraged to report it to Cleveland Police at cleveland.police.uk.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you thought of these unsolved mysteries in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all for the next one.